Thank you for joining us on THV 11 Plus for your 11 on 11 weekend wrap up. I'm Ashley King, and we start with the family's fight for justice in Pine Bluff. Joynell Brandon's loved ones say their fight to bring her home is far from over, as the man prosecutors say is connected to her death stood before a judge for the first time. THV 11's Maya Ellison has a look at where the case stands and the message from Brandon's family.
She gets you with that smile, and no matter who you were, in her heart, you were a kind person, and you were her friend.
And she wanted to see the good in everybody. And always, you know, we all can agree, if you talk to her, she was going to make sure she said, I love you.
Every chance.
I love you, sis, you know, every chance she got.
6 months. That smile has been a source of strength. For Markesia Johnson, it's a reminder of who her mother is and why her family hasn't stopped searching for Joynell Brandon.
It's been very rocky without not knowing the proper information that we should. And recently learning the information that we did, it still doesn't bring us any closure because we don't have her home with us physically.
Right here on Fluker Street is where Pine Bluff police say Brandon was last seen. Police reports say Johnson dropped her mother off at a home on this street, expecting her to return later. By the next morning, she found Brandon never came home. In that same report, it says Brandon was last seen in a white box truck with 30-year-old Tony Thompson Jr. Months later, police say they found Brandon's blood inside that vehicle, along with the shell casing and DNA allegedly linked to Thompson.
Learning about the DNA evidence, it was very heart-wrenching because knowing that it is her DNA, considering that it matched me, so it's like a piece of me was found, but a whole part of me is still out there somewhere.
Thompson was charged last week with first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. And on Wednesday, he appeared before a judge for his plea and arraignment, with Brandon's family in attendance.
Because this is a rocky roller coaster. It's not easy at all. And
the emotion, overwhelming. But through the tears, Johnson says she always goes back to her mother's light.
She wouldn't want us sad. She would tell us we crazy for crying. What y'all crying for? That's what she would say. She was very God-fearing. And that's a part of the reason why I keep my faith, because she had faith that was so strong. And as my grandmother would say, all you need is a little faith.
And MJ says that faith is what drives her ultimate mission.
My overall goal is to bring her home by any means necessary. So, like I always say, our motto, forever screaming, bring Joynell home until we get that reunion.
In Pine Bluff, Maya Ellison, THV 11 News.
Thursday night, Brandon's family released balloons on what would have been her 44th birthday. Tony Thompson has pled not guilty to the charges against him, with his bond set at $1 million. Last June, a football coach in Quitman was suspended by the State Board of Education, who said he didn't do enough about bullying and harassment in the locker room. Now that suspension has been lifted due to improper behavior by state board members. THV 11's Carter Thwaite brings us up to speed on where things stand.
Kids were shoved in lockers and hit with footballs. They were shot with Orby and or BB guns. Some claim that they were whipped with a bullwhip.
Those details plus graphic details of sexual harassment are what State Board member Jeff Wood brought up in August of last year. It's what led to a 1-year suspension and 2 years probation for Quitman head football coach Danny Mars.
I know you've been scolded enough, but man, this is a bad situation that could have been repaired or made not so bad a lot sooner.
But soon after, Mars, whose lawyer did not return a request for comment Wednesday, appealed the ruling for a number of reasons, including a so-called lack of evidence and what his attorney called an excessive and arbitrary punishment. But the biggest allegation? State board members who decided on Mars' suspension had communicated with the people who filed the complaint. On Tuesday, a Cleburne County judge agreed, deciding that contact, called ex parte, denied Mars a fair hearing. The judge ruled that his suspension is vacated, and the state board will have to reconsider Mars' case, with the 2 board members who engaged in ex parte communication unable to take part. For THV 11 News, I'm Carter Thwaite.
And even with Mars' suspension vacated, it seems unlikely he'll be back as head football coach, as Quitman announced the new hiring of a new head coach on Tuesday. We reached out to the superintendent for further comment, but have not heard back. And a heads up for drivers, new technology can now detect when you're using your phone while driving through a work zone. Here's how it works. An officer has to be present because it's not a ticket by mail system. The camera detects when a driver holds a device, sends an alert to an officer down the road, and the officer can safely pull over the driver when they exit the work zone. ARDOT spokesman Dave Parker says he hopes this will reduce the number of wrecks.
What we're asking you to do really is to change your behavior just a little bit, and I know that takes time, and we're hoping by getting the word out this way that people will start to think, you know what, I need to be better at this, I need to be smarter, it's for my safety and everyone else's.
Parker says ARDOT has 3 work zone cameras, 2 on I-49 and 1 on I-57. 2 of those 3 have the new AI technology to detect drivers on their phones. Another new program could help improve communication between people with mental illnesses and law enforcement. Arkansas Revenue offices now have 2 envelopes available for drivers, a blue one meant for people on the autism spectrum and a green one for people with any other kind of mental illness. In it, drivers can store a copy of their driver's license, vehicle registration, and their current insurance card. It also lists instructions for the driver being pulled over and some notes for the officer to make the traffic stop more effective.
We had some people waiting, to get that on January 2nd, knowing that it was effective in 2026. So yeah, we've already issued, I'm sure it's up to several dozen at this point, and that number is only going to grow as this continues to gain attention.
These 2 envelopes are different than the communication impediment decal created years ago. That one requires proof of diagnosis, unlike the envelopes, and is placed on the car's license plate, showing the driver is not able to communicate effectively. You can get the envelopes at any Arkansas Revenue office for free. And developing another dog attack in Saline County has officials searching for answers once again. State and county leaders say they're frustrated by the lack of animal control options in rural areas, and they want to find a long-term fix. THV 11's Carter Thweed explains why this problem has become so urgent.
The fact that we have residents, children being mauled by animals, it's no matter which way you look at it, it's tragic.
State Representative RJ Hawk lives in Saline County. He says the lack of animal control continues to be a big problem, but fixing it isn't easy.
When you do it at the state level, it's a statewide ban for every community across the way. And what I've been told by multiple people is that needs to be really regulated within the counties themselves.
Saline County Quorum Court member Stephanie Johnson has been pushing for change since the 2 deadly attacks last year, within weeks of each other.
It's becoming an even bigger public safety issue with these continued dog attacks.
The most recent attack happened this week on Diamond Hills Cove, north of Alexander. According to an incident report, 3 dogs attacked a mother and daughter while walking down the street. Their injuries were not life-threatening. Johnson says while cities like Benton and Bryant have animal control services, rural areas like where this attack happened do not, leaving residents vulnerable.
There's nothing that can be done about that in Alexander and Bauxite and Haskell and the areas that are not covered by animal control or a shelter.
Johnson says the Quorum Court will need to come together on funding or new laws to address the issue. County Judge Matt Brumley and other Quorum Court members did not respond Thursday when asked for comment.
The local municipalities, whether it be cities or counties, they need to find out what fits them best, and they need to create their own ordinances.
It seems like the Quorum Court is too concerned about making people mad over trying to pass common sense laws rather than trying to make the county safe.
The 2 owners involved in this week's attack have been arrested for assault, and the 3 pit bulls have been seized. People in Pine Bluff are once again asking what's being done to curb the city's crime. The new police chief says he's asking the same question and already putting plans into motion just days into the job. THV 11's Maya Ellison sits down with the chief and learns more about his priorities moving forward.
Who is Chief Davis?
Oh, who is Chief Davis? I got a lot of hats that I wear. Father, husband, mentor, things of that nature. Of course, police officer.
Sean Davis now adds police chief to that list, leading the department he served in for more than 2 decades.
We're going to hold people accountable. The officers are going to hold them accountable and just have a better working relationship with the community.
For Davis, building that connection starts with visibility and accessibility.
I'm going to get out and meet the people where they are. We have different programs that allow for that. We have an open door policy. I'm wanting to hear the concerns, want to hear the challenges, so we know what we need to focus on. And like I always say, together we win.
As Chief Davis steps into the role, crime remains a top concern for residents. This week alone, police reported an aggravated robbery and a shooting. But department data released last year shows overall crime down 15% compared to 2024. Davis says part of his mission is changing Pine Bluff's reputation.
Some people may have bought into the narrative of so-called crime bluff. I know it's a false connotation. Every city has their share of crime, I just think ours get publicized more. I think they focus more on the crime than the good that's here in the city.
He also emphasizes accountability within his own department. What's your plan to kind of handle those things and when it comes to officer-involved situations?
They will be held accountable. If it's an infraction, then it has to be handled.
Davis says he's already working to restructure his command staff and increase officer presence on the streets.
I think we're going to tweak the strategy on how those officers police the neighborhood.
Now 4 days into the job, Davis says his first 90 days are focused on leadership, visibility, and trust.
I want to get out and meet with the community more, get a better relationship with the community, and let them know we're here for them.
And as for the overall goal,
to make Pine Bluff a place where they say, hey, we can go there and start a business, we can go there and raise a family. So I want to let Pine Bluff know that I understand their assignment.
And Chief Davis also says beyond reorganizing leadership, one priority he has is getting the city's real-time crime center fully operational, a tool he hopes will help officers respond faster and prevent crime before it happens. And a fire destroys 100 years of history at a church in Lonoke County. Hear from church members and fire officials on how they're moving forward after the break. Welcome back. A woman says she's grateful to be alive after a crash on I-49 in Northwest Arkansas nearly turned deadly. She says a split-second decision and a jump off a bridge saved her life. Lauren Spencer shows us how that moment changed everything and how she's now focused on recovery.
I never would have thought leaving that night that the next time I came home would be in a wheelchair.
18-year-old Melora Stites says what started as a normal drive to work from Sallisaw to Fayetteville quickly turned into what she called a bad dream that she couldn't wake up from.
I'm grateful I can even talk to you right now.
Arkansas State Police say Stites lost control of her car just before 3:45 in the morning, December 28th, crashing and leaving her vehicle disabled and blocking both lanes of the highway near the mile 32 marker in Crawford County.
I've never been in any kind of accident before. I've never even broke a bone, anything like that. I wasn't sure what to do.
But it wasn't just the crash. State Police say Stites called 911. ASP dash camera video shows troopers rushing to the scene. And then she stepped onto the shoulder, trying to signal oncoming drivers. Stites says about 5 minutes later, she saw a semi-truck driving on the shoulder right where she was standing.
But I see him getting closer and closer and closer, and at this point, he's about maybe 10 feet away, and I'm realizing he's not going to be able to come to a stop.
Scared it would hit her, she says she grabbed the concrete barrier and jumped.
I didn't realize how high up I was, until I started falling down.
An ASP crash report says that fall from I-49 was about 40 feet. She landed right around here on Doyle Road with injuries, but grateful to be alive.
Felt like I was reliving my life all over again. Like I had like a million different dreams in the span of like a second. It felt like it was really insane.
A dream, or more like a nightmare. She walked away with a few broken parts of her back, a fractured rib, pelvis, and sternum, but alive.
There was a really high chance that I couldn't even walk again at all, ever. I just feel really lucky that I'm not in even worse condition, honestly.
Her story has since gone viral, viewed more than 2 million times on TikTok.
Multiple people have called it a miraculous survival.
It wasn't exactly a dream, but even in a wheelchair and back brace, she says she's grateful for a second chance at life.
You realize how quickly everything can change, because you never think something like this is going to happen to you.
Well, a new grocery store has promised to end a food desert on the east side of Pine Bluff, but 2 years later, it still hasn't opened. THV 11's Tanya Motorzitsky has asked city leaders what the holdup is.
In Tulsa, Oasis Fresh Market rose out of a community shaped by the aftermath of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Oasis became a symbol of rebuilding, access, and refuge.
But at Oasis, we don't turn anyone away. We step in, we fill the gap.
When leaders announced East Pine Bluff would be next, it sounded like progress.
Feel like hope is coming. They feel faith. They feel like somebody is out here listening to us.
2 years after that announcement, there's still no groundbreaking or grocery store on that side of town.
It just takes a lot of behind the scenes data, research, commitments.
I submitted an open records request for any documentation on the Oasis plans, and the city told me they don't exist. City Councilor Letitia Brunson, who's been pushing for the grocery store in her district, says that's true, but there's still a need, and she's still on board for Oasis to come.
We have to get some funding together. We just have to do some things to bring it full circle.
She says there was a letter of intent for Oasis with urban renewal and a tax incentive with Go Forward Pine Bluff, but that process sunsetted. While the old Big Lots off of East Harding is waiting to be home to a new grocery store, Brunson says they did not forget, it's just taking longer.
We're working hard to get that, to do what we got to do, because economic development is important, and people having access to healthy food is important.
For now, the promise of an Oasis in East Pine Bluff is still just that, a promise. In Pine Bluff, Tanya Motorzitsky, THV 11 News.
We reached out to Pine Bluff Mayor Vivian Flowers' office and Oasis Fresh Market owner Aaron Johnson for a comment and did not hear back. A Lone Oak community devastated after a 109-year-old church building caught fire on Monday. THV 11's Carter Thweet visited the Bethlehem United Methodist Church, where members say it's a tragic loss.
Well, a sad scene here in Lone Oak County Monday. A church with over 100 years of history burned to the ground. The fire continues to burn here on Tuesday.
So we're driving up, Ricky's driving the car, and I said, "Oh, Ricky, it's not the grass, it's the church."
For Ricky and Brenda Phillips, the Bethlehem United Methodist Church between Cabot and Lone Oak has been their home for years. Church member Joanne Absher told me the church was founded more than 150 years ago. Its sanctuary, built in 1916, stood until Monday.
I got here when the back part was on fire, and to stand out here and watch it burn was probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done.
By Tuesday afternoon, the fire was contained, but smoke still rose from the rubble.
It's more than just a church building. It was over 100 years old. It was so many memories were made here over these years.
The church's entrance is severely damaged and the worship sanctuary reduced to rubble. One small consolation, firefighters managed to save the fellowship hall from major damage.
We need a lot of prayers. We need time to grieve, and then we would get into the rebuilding.
Through it all, the congregation is holding on to faith and plans to gather again soon.
At least we was not in the church, so that was a good blessing. We saved our fellowship hall, so hopefully by Sunday we'll have church again in the fellowship hall.
In Lone Oak, Carter Thweet, THV 11 News.
The Tri-Community's fire chief says there was no evidence of foul play with the fire. The church says they haven't set up any kind of fund for rebuilding. Right now, they're just asking for prayers. And coming up after the break on your 11 on 11 weekend wrap up, we go inside the Vogue Veil, see how a grieving widow became Arkansas's bridal boss. Welcome back. This year's flu outbreak is reaching new heights. The CDC says doctors' visits for the flu have hit their highest level in almost 3 decades, and there have been at least 11 million cases so far. CBS's Skylar Henry speaks with a family still feeling the impact weeks after getting sick.
This flu, it took everybody out.
For the Hawes family, Christmas in Atlanta was spent in bed and on the couch, flu spreading through the house.
How'd the kids do?
The kids, they were hit the worst. My oldest, my 12-year-old, he was looking like he was turning the corner. Day 8, we ended up at Children's because his breathing was restricted. And so he had to go get a breathing treatment, steroids.
The CDC says since October 1st, there have been at least 120,000 hospitalizations from the flu and at least 5,000 deaths, including at least 9 children.
It has been hitting hard with many people getting sick.
Atlanta pediatrician Dr. Jennifer Shue says parents should monitor their child's breathing when determining whether to take them to the emergency room.
You know, they're not as alert as usual. They might be a little bit dehydrated. They might be weaker, or they might have a hard time breathing. So lips could turn blue. They could be panting, heaving. You can look at the muscles in the neck or in between the ribs. Sometimes they'll tug in and out.
Dr. Shue says getting the flu shot remains the best protection from severe illness.
There's going to be people out there that watch this and they say, we don't ever get the flu shot. We don't need the flu shot. What would y'all say?
Get the flu shot.
Today.
Like, we're taking our kids, even though they've had the flu, we just want to make sure that they're completely covered.
The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends all children 6 months and older get the flu vaccine. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Atlanta.
And here at home, flu-related deaths rose to 10 in the latest weekly report. It also showed 512 flu patients are currently hospitalized across the state. With flu activity continuing to grow, doctors are urging people to take steps to protect yourself and those around you.
One of the best things that you can do is hand hygiene. So just simply washing your hands. Another thing is keeping individuals sick at home. So don't send your kid to school who's sick. Don't give them pre-treat with medicine. Just keep them at home. Stay away from people who have been sick.
With kids returning back to school, doctors also say they expect the number of cases to continue to rise. It may be January, but wedding season is right around the corner. Future brides will be on the hunt for that perfect dress for their happy ever after. But not all fairy tales take the same road. Here's our Hayden Balgavy.
I actually brought her on full time.
Tiffany Miller-Stroud's job is complex.
Our goal is that you pick your music, turn the ring light to the Kelvin temperature that is for an outside time. Everyone kind of gets to pick a dress. I let them touch it, feel it.
Yet still simple.
This is the best day of your life. I want you to feel so beautiful.
The owner of the Vogue Veil in Cabot is still pinching herself.
I never dreamed of owning a bridal store. Didn't even cross my mind. I really thought that I'd be a teacher forever. I taught special ed in Cabot.
That was the game plan until life threw Tiffany a curveball she never could have seen coming.
I lost my husband Ryan to cancer in 2021, and so that kind of threw my life into a whirlwind of itself. Just being widowed at 29 was super hard to navigate with a 2-year-old.
With the help of her son Hayes and Ryan's family, Tiffany grieved while pursuing a new passion, a career that reminds her of the happiest day of her life every day.
I started dating Ryan when I was 15, and so it would have been 18 years ago, 2 months ago. And so, 18 years is how long we would have been together, and we were married 7.5.
Since opening in 2024, the Vogue Veil has quickly become the next big name.
Full circle, because I just know that he would be so happy that I wasn't sitting in my grief, but I was using that to bring joy to other people.
Tiffany not only found purpose, she found a partner.
My friend said, "What about in 5 years, Matt?" And I said, "Him?" To his face. Ew, gross. And then he was like, I literally just knew like no chance ever happening. And so there's just one day that I was like, are you cute? Maybe. So.
Now alongside her husband, Matt, and son, Hayes, Tiffany is living her dream while honoring Ryan's memory.
It's always about the bride and the experience and not about making money. That takes care of itself when you take care of people. So that's just my hope.
Hayden Valgavy reporting for us. And that's going to do it for your 11 on 11 weekend wrap up. I'm Ashley King, and we'll see you next week.